And that's the easy part. As far as prepping the forge, the next step for me will be applying this rigidizer. So we need to actually take and wet down the wool blanket, the wool insulation, and then we'll be spraying it with the rigidizer, installing it inside the forge housing. Basically, they give you step-by-step instructions. It takes a couple of days to do this properly. Be a while. So bear with me. We'll do this step by step over the next couple of days process and get this thing set up so we can actually fire it. So a decade later, the rigidizer is finally dried. It took forever. I used about a full 32 ounces of water. So if I knew how to read the instructions, I would have done this part right, but I don't know how to read. So what it actually says to do is to pre-mix the rigidizer with water as a 1-to-1 ratio, and I just sprayed straight rigidizer on a very wet insulated blanket. So it works. It rigidized, but it's not the right way to do it, so don't do what I'm showing in the video. Basically, you're supposed to lightly pre-wet the insulation on all sides of the blanket, and I kind of soaked the blanket with water, and then I sprayed the entire bottle of rigidizer over the blanket. It took forever to dry, like I'm talking a full week on to dry in the house, sitting on a heater vent, but it dried, and it looks like it permeated all parts of the blanket. Probably not the way you should do it. So read your instructions carefully before doing what I did. The next step, however, is to apply the refractory, and they're very specific on the amounts that you are supposed to use. And it says use a scale. I stole this from the kitchen. Just keep that between us. Anyway, there we go. I'm going to mix a certain amount of water. It says to mix, you're basically doing it in 2 coats. So a coat of the refractory we're going to mix with a certain amount of water. It looks like 2 1/4 pound of satinite and about 10 fluid ounces of water. 9.94 fluid ounces of water. It says mix that for 5 minutes until it looks like sour cream, and then use a brush to paint it onto the surface. And once you're done painting it onto the surface, you let that air dry again for 24 hours. First, you're going to pre-wet the blanket, and it says to spray water lightly on all exposed areas of the insulation. So I've got some water in a spray bottle. I will just spray it lightly this time, and then mix up my refractory and get that painted on there for the first coat, and then we'll have to come back tomorrow to do a second coat. After that dries for another 24 hours, we can then take and fire it up and cure out all the remaining water. So this is like a 3, 4, or 5 day process, or longer, depending on how much you read the instructions or don't read the instructions. Good luck. Just finished up on the forge. Got it all burned out. Kind of a temporary stand for it as far as this goes. On top, I'll be putting some metal on it to put some doors and some fire bricks. I do like how they designed these burners with a simple quarter turn ball valve. They've got a fine-tune adjuster on the regulator that screws into the tank itself, so you don't have to try to fine-tune stuff with flames coming out. You can do it all down by the tank. The burners are made pretty nice. You've got a nice fine adjustment on the air chokes, and the burners themselves, when you mount those in, make sure they're about 3/4 of an inch up into past the refractory layer. That way they're not going to melt the tips off your burners. All in all, I'm happy with it. It looks like it'll be a good running piece of equipment. It heated up fine. I was able to do several cycles of heat up, cool down, heat up, cool down, and excited to get using it. Whatever keeps the noise out.